I am not a Kingdom Hearts 3 hater like a lot of people are. It's definitely not my favorite game in the series either, but I appreciate it for what it is. However, there was one major issue that I had with KH3 that I think should be an easy fix for upcoming installments. Kingdom Hearts 3 severely lacked Disney bosses, and the ones they did include were weak at best. The best Disney bosses were the various titans found in Olympus. They felt grand and relevant to the source material. The game also included Davy Jones and Dark Baymax. As far as traditional Disney bosses go, that is all we got. Marshmallow from Arendelle fought us, but after beating him, he became a party member. We also got heartless Disney bosses in the Grim Guardianess and Skull. They're just giant personas of existing Disney villains that really don't have much connection to the character they are supposed to be representing. I will always prefer bosses who are similar to Sora's size, so as I look at potential candidates for KH4 Disney bosses, I will prefer those. I will also try to pick characters from worlds that I think will be included in the game or that have a high percentage chance of being in the game. I'll try to convey how I see the fight going down and any other details of interest. With that being said, let's get right into it. Dr. Facilier from the 2009 animated film The Princess and the Frog has quickly become one of the most popular Disney villains of the post-Renaissance era. He earned a spot as a primary member of the Disney Villains Group. We have interacted with or fought all members but two, one being Facilier and the other being Cruella de Vil, so I think that him being included in the next game is highly likely with his status and continued popularity with fans. I absolutely need Keith David back in the role, and I'm shocked that he hasn't done any work for the series yet. I think a Bayou world would be an easy inclusion, as Tiana could fit in nicely as a new Princess of Heart if they want to go that route. Dr. Facilier can actually work pretty well as his own individual boss, more so than I had first thought. His ability to wield voodoo magic allows him to deal attacks without looking very physically intimidating. I hope that they would be able to include his shadow as well, either as a secondary obstacle or a secondary form for the voodoo doctor. He could also call on his friends from the other side, or they could serve a story purpose in pushing Dr. Facilier into a fight with Sora or anyone else for that matter. His connection with Death and the other side perfectly serves the themes of Kingdom Hearts 4. This feels like a no-brainer for Square Enix and Disney. In terms of a battle arena, I think the Doctor's Emporium seen in the film when speaking with his ghost friends could be a great atmospheric spot for a fight. The shadows could also change the arena and move things around to make it more dynamic on a fight-by-fight basis. I think they would need to make it quite bigger from the film to make it worthwhile, but if they want to go a different way, they can use the area at the end of the film when Dr. Facilier gets dragged to the other side. It's definitely going to take a bit of creativity, but it's very doable in terms of what the base content provides. Dr. Facilier feels like an early game boss, maybe the first roadblock for Sora after Quadratum. I think Tamatoa is the most likely boss coming out of Moana. Knowing that Taka is actually Te Fiti and not a villain at all, I think it's less likely for Disney to sign off on that, but it's a possibility. I think another reason that Taka may not be a boss is her similarities to the Lava Titan, who was featured in Kingdom Hearts 3. I believe that Tamatoa would just be the more interesting of the two in both a story and battle perspective. Maui could have been a more interesting mid-world boss fight before gaining him as a party member, but I'm going to assume that Disney would be quite protective over one of their more popular new characters. For Tamatoa, he has a fun personality and a natural boss arena in his lair covered in treasures. He is already very big and intimidating, so not much design effort needs to be made to make him one of the boss battles. I would presume that he could similarly move around the arena to the Lump of Horror or even a stealth sneak from KH1. He should be able to swing his claws, rush forward towards Sora, attack with his body weight, and maybe even roll around on his shell. Tamatoa feels like an early to mid-game boss, I would say after Facilier. Even as someone who is usually against big bosses, I would love a Disney villain over just some big heartless or nobody. The beady-eyed bottom feeder would be a great addition to the cast, and I'm sure that Shea Frillis would love it. Penelope! I feel like King Candy and the Wreck-It Ralph movie have a high percentage chance of being included, and this wouldn't be the first time that they were. Making their first appearance in Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, they deserve to be in a console entry, and I think it works well for KH4. King Candy as a boss battle feels like something you have to put a little more thought into. If Square Enix is basing this on what they have been doing lately, I could see them turning him into a giant Heartless. It would be easier to just reskin a Heartless than to figure out how King Candy would fight. They could use his real identity Turbo, as he is a lot more intimidating, but still too small in my opinion. Anyhow, I would rather wail on the stupid king with his tiny little crown. I think the best course of action for Mr. Candy would be a Clayton-like situation. Give him some kind of bigger enemy to fight alongside him, and Sora would have to go after King Candy for the win. But they could also use his ability as a master racer and give him a car instead. With his ability to glitch, he could be a boss that is hard to keep in one spot as they zoom around. I think either option would be a good variety in comparison to the other bosses that we will talk about today. As for the arena, I think it's going to take place in the Sugar Rush game. It would just be such a unique and different arena than what we're used to, and it has a lot of great set pieces. They could use the various candy landscapes to their advantage and make the battlefield more complex than your typical square or circular arena.
Lotso?
I think if a new world from Kingdom Hearts 3 was to be included in Kingdom Hearts 4, I think it would have to be Toy Box. I think there's the fan support, a new movie, and just the most material to work with. Toy Box in KH3 barely uses actual story beats from the films and decides to craft its own story, which I'm fine with, but they also didn't include any Disney bosses in a film series with naturally good villains. Lotso may not have the staying power of other Disney villains, but I think he is an interesting and complex one that could work perfectly in the KH formula. Obviously he is just a pink teddy bear, so combat-wise you will have to work around that. But with the party shrunk down to toy size, I think that Lotso is intimidating enough that bear-like attacks wouldn't feel out of place. I think it could be good for the party to not initially realize his darkness and try to help him before he turns on Sora and the gang. He could also use his authoritarianism to control other toys to attack us as well. I think that the arena is going to be less intriguing because the whole film takes place in a daycare. Obviously you can move your story anywhere through your writing, but they are just toys, so the arena needs to feel natural. With what we have been given, I think the outside of the daycare could be good, but the incinerator would be great if they can make that work. I think Lotso is actually more likely than our next villain, and I will explain why. Zurg is an interesting case. Along with another Pixar villain, it was shocking that neither of them made the cut of the game when most saw them as shoo-ins. Zurg lesser so than the other villain, and don't worry, we will talk about him as well. Zurg just felt like an easy fit for the story that was being told in Toy Box the first time around. I actually think if they were to revisit the world of Toy Box, they would more closely follow a recent entry in the series, which Zurg has not been a part of really. I think there is also less chance that he's included if a particular sci-fi IP is included, as their main antagonist looks and talks eerily similar to him. There is always a chance that they find a place for Zurg, considering just how iconic of a villain he is. He's also been voiced by James Patrick Stewart, the voice of Zigbar, in other video games as well. As for fight prowess, he is one of the easier to come up with ideas for. We know that he has a blaster to shoot projectiles at us, which could be a nice callback to Zigbar, funnily enough. But he is also a robot of some kind, meaning that you can give him any tool that you want, as he can transform his weapon, which could be a cool addition. You definitely have more options when it comes to a battle arena for Zurg, as he has been in more films than most of these villains, especially of the Disney animation canon. I think the coolest part from the films could be the elevator shaft, while adding a little Kingdom Hearts flair to spice it up.
I knew you couldn't do it.
I feel like The Incredibles is a shoo-in for having a world in KH4 following Toy Story and Monstropolis. It just feels right. The question now is whether they include Syndrome as the big bad or not. I think with Metroville in the game, you have to have Syndrome and hopefully Jason Lee voicing him. The only reason they may not include The Incredibles would be that they did the whole superhero thing in KH3 with Big Hero 6, but also the fact that Marvel could be in play. I feel like it's actually more likely that The Incredibles get the nod over any potential Marvel world, especially if they include Star Wars. I don't see a need to cram both properties into Kingdom Hearts 4, but they may do it for the attention it would bring to the game. Anyhow, Syndrome is another easy translation into a boss battle. He is a supervillain with a bunch of gadgets at his disposal. There could also be a mini boss fight with his various Omnidroids. Syndrome should have the ability to fly around the arena with his rocket boots and control gravity with his 0-point energy gloves. We don't see many bosses that can move Sora around without hitting him. The only one I could think of is Xemnas. His personality would also fit right in with Kingdom Hearts as a character who is extremely flawed and tries to hide behind his lack of strength and heroism with his intellect and gadgets. As for an arena, the city landscape of Metroville could be a valid arena, much like back in San Francisco, but I would rather have most of the world take place in Syndrome's island, where his headquarters are located. No Manisan Island feels a lot more intriguing and differs from other worlds than what we have seen in the past.
Randall has just broken the all-time
The biggest snub of KH3, it is always possible that Randall Boggs gets his chance to shine. I think it's less likely that Monstropolis gets a second chance in KH4, especially when put up against Toybox and even Arendelle. But if they do, I am hopeful that they will fix their mistake and include Randall as a boss battle. It really makes no sense to me why they didn't do that in the first place, but I'm sure they had their reasons. He honestly wouldn't take much work to translate into a boss battle. He can climb on any surface and blend in with it, making him hard to keep track of. The only thing they would have to workshop would be Randall's ability to attack his opponents. I think just general attacks would work for him, and the ability to use his tail could also work. I don't think he is super intimidating, so he shouldn't be a hard boss, but he should definitely be included. They could return to the factory and have a fight somewhere there, but I think they would need to imagine something a little more creative. Monsters Inc. doesn't have a ton of areas that could support a boss battle, but the various amount of doors can allow you to go practically anywhere.
Darth Vader!
Darth Vader should be the boss battle when a Star Wars world inevitably gets included in Kingdom Hearts. I don't really see them bothering with the slew of other Disney villains in Star Wars, as I believe they would want to keep the story straightforward, much like the original trilogy was. They could start with the prequels or even the sequels, but I just don't think they will with how much baggage there is. The original trilogy feels the most authentic to Kingdom Hearts and can easily fit in the overarching narrative of Kingdom Hearts 4 and the series as a whole. We already know that Darth Vader is battle-tested and has the abilities that flow perfectly into being a Kingdom Hearts boss battle. Vader has the ability to use the Force and wield a lightsaber. I would love it to be a little gimmicky and feel more like a lightsaber duel as opposed to a traditional battle. I think this would easily be the most iconic Disney battle in the series, as Darth Vader is one of the most iconic villains in the history of media. Hell, the only more iconic fight would be Sora taking down the Nazis. I think Vader would be a perfect final Disney boss of the game before going on to fight Xigbar or the Masters of Masters. We have lacked good final Disney World bosses since probably KH1 with Captain Hook, and even still had Maleficent and Chernabog coming down the pipeline. Considering that Star Wars takes place in a vast galaxy, the fight can take place pretty much anywhere. The most likely spot would be on the Death Star, and it would make the most sense. I think another cool spot could be Tatooine or even Dagobah, the planet where Luke goes to find Yoda. I think they both have a cooler aesthetic to them and can make the battle even more iconic.
You were made to be ruled slowly.
While Star Wars feels like it has more limited options for where it goes, I feel like they can take the Marvel franchise anywhere. It is so ranging and varied that they could follow any characters with practically any villain and even make their own story up with all the multiverses in play. However, for their first go around, I could see them taking an easy route in the first Avengers film with Loki serving as the main antagonist. Loki is one of the more popular villains / anti-heroes in the MCU. His turn from villain to anti-hero could be written into the story, and if they are looking to revisit the IP in later titles, it could be told over the course of multiple games. His battle prowess speaks for itself, much like practically every villain in the MCU. I think it would definitely be him for the pick, unless they want to do a big swing with Thanos or even a Doctor Doom. If they follow the Avengers 1 plot, they would be in New York City, which I think they would want to avoid for the most part for its similarities to Quadratum. I think a couple of better options for a Loki boss battle would be the Avengers Tower or somewhere in Asgard, which is Loki's homeworld.
I am inevitable.
As I said, if they want to swing big, they would go for Thanos. At his peak form, he could be on par with KH1 Maleficent in terms of his significance to the overarching story. If they would like to give Disney bosses a little more to do in this upcoming saga, Thanos would be the perfect choice, but I can't imagine many KH fans would enjoy that. I'm sure Square Enix could make that work, but I don't think that this would work in today's gaming landscape. I think it would just work better as a contained story. It is probably more likely that we see Loki before we see Thanos, in my opinion. Even without the Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos would be still an intimidating force against Sora and the gang. With the Gauntlet, he could practically do anything, so you can do anything with your boss battle. Thanos would be an easy boss to include, but story-wise, it would be too hard to include him in just one game. Once again, there is a slew of different locations that the battle could take place, but the coolest would be the location of the big battle at the end of Avengers Endgame. It wouldn't make for a complex battle arena, but it is an iconic spot from the film. Overall, there are a lot of potential villains that could be included in Kingdom Hearts 4, and this is only a handful of them. I think the ones I talked about today have a high percentage chance or are practically locks for the game. I would love for there to be more Disney bosses in KH4, but with the trend the series has taken, it feels like we are moving further and further away from that. If there are any Disney villains that you think that I missed that should have been included, feel free to drop those in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe as well. With that said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.